All righty. Greetings to those joining us on Facebook, on YouTube. Uh, all right. Welcome. Hope everybody's doing well on this night. So welcome to those who are joining us live on this platform tonight. If you just happen to be scrolling through and happen to see what we got to talk about, when me and Tahiyya get together, it's always going to be something good and juicy and healing that we're going to discuss. So this is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, so our discussion is going to be centered around that. So just let anybody who is looking or may have sensitive ears, it could be triggering content that we may discuss, but it's to be healing. Um, I would say if you have children, they can listen to, but we all about being in truth in what we do discuss, if we do discuss it. So, which is part of the issue with the sexual trauma, what we are not discussing. So, just to introduce myself, I'm Asha Sims. I am an integrative mental health therapist, holistic practitioner, yoga teacher, sensual arts educator, shamanic practitioner. Basically, I take all the different approaches and bring them in one space to assist in people healing from the mind, the body, and spirit. And I have a deep concern in working with women and even helping those with trauma and bringing awareness to sexual health in that capacity. So that's a little bit about me. I'm going to let my partner over here tell a little bit about herself and what she does.
Hello, everyone. So I'm Tahiyya Martin, or AKA Tahiyya Alnisa. I am a licensed therapist in the state of North Carolina and South Carolina, as well as a board certified sexologist, and amongst many other things. I work exclusively with women, more specifically Black women, in reclaiming your sexuality, unlearning old narratives, working through trauma so that you can be your true, authentic self. Yeah.
Cool. So with that, our topic, I know this is something that we decided to go live with the clients that we see, and not as just clients, family members, friends that we encounter with this whole subject of the sexual trauma that is been there, but I feel it's coming to the surface to be healed. We're in a new age, we're in new awareness. And with that expansion, it's a lot of things that I think are coming to the surface to be dealt with, whether you choose to or not. That's going into the shadow side of healing and trauma. But that's really where a lot of us are stuck at. That the
Right.
shadow work when it comes to sexual trauma or just sexual health in general.
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about our culture. So we're going to talk a little bit in different sectors from the mental, the physical, the spiritual, on how trauma is impacting us. And I would say we have to talk about it. I know before going into private practice, I worked in higher ed as a violence prevention coordinator on a college campus. And my role was to assist those that were dealing with sexual assault on the campus. I want to say sometimes I may not have had no more for contact with students that really came to get the services, but I know it was a lot more going on. So we're taught in our families to zip it up
Mm-hmm.
and often. And when we
Mm-hmm.
say taught, it's not always this is the rules, don't do this, even though some parents say what goes on here stays in the house, but it's also that unspoken things that are taught based upon if you go communicate about it, nobody does anything. Knowing that you're in the family and all the cousins has been touched by this one particular person and
Mm-hmm.
nobody says anything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this is where we eventually talk about the trauma and the epigenetics of how it's passed down over time. And so within that, we have to now rip off the wounds
Right.
so that we can really heal because some of this is infectious and it's taking away intimacy, it's taking away relationships, it's taking away
Mm-hmm.
sexual health and freedom and
Mhm.
enjoying sensuality and expressing yourself because of the trauma. So what sector you want to start at? Mental? You want to start at physical,
Ah,
spiritual? What you think?
yes. Let's start with the mental, the mind.
Mind, yes.
Let's start with the mind.
Yes. And that's it when I was saying, even working with those on the college campus, the majority of my clients that I pretty much work with are age 35 and up, primarily 40 and up. And
Mm,
a lot of the clients that I am working with is the sexual trauma is just now coming to the surface to be dealt with,
mhm.
whether it's been suppressed and minimized or normalized.
Ooh,
Normalized. Yes.
yes.
So I think it goes back with mental health. How do we help to treat it if it's not being acknowledged?
Um, I think first understanding what trauma is. Because this word is often just thrown out, you know, without understanding what it is, then it's hard for people to understand how to treat it.
Mhm.
So trauma affects the brain, and they call it like the crocodile brain. So I'm not going to go too scientific, but just straight to the point. So when we experience trauma, and since we're talking about sexual trauma, I'm gonna narrow it down to sexual trauma. When we experience sexual trauma, we go into what they call the crocodile brain. And so think of a crocodile swimming through the swamp, right? And crocodiles are often just like looking, always aware. That's why the eyes are on the side. So they're constantly looking for danger. And so a pebble may be thrown in the water, and immediately the crocodile is going to want to snap. They're going to react, they're not going to respond. And that is how sexual trauma affects our brain. We are constantly in this hyper focused, hyper vigilant space looking for danger. Even if it's unbeknownst to ourselves, we're constantly looking for that danger that caused the trauma. And so we're in this protective mode, always trying to protect self. So that may be narratives that we have created to protect ourselves. That may be a belief system that we have created to protect ourselves. It may be behaviors that we're doing to protect ourselves. But trauma constantly has us working in the mind. The mind is constantly going, trying to protect, which leads to those who come in with anxiety, which leads to those who come in with depression, which leads those to come in with mood disorder because you're up or you're down. Or you may feel like you are, they use the word now neurodivergent, but we use ADHD or ADD. You
Mhm.
may feel as though you're ADD or ADHD, but it's really that trauma that has the brain constantly going, trying to protect self. So when you come in to myself or Asha or any other therapist, you're coming in saying, I'm anxious. I can't sleep. I'm having nightmares. Maybe agoraphobia. I don't even want to go out into the world, depending on where your trauma happened. And so we begin to treat the brain or the mental health. However, for me as a therapist, and Asha may relate to this too, we work from the body up, because working from the mind down is basically saying that A plus B, you will get the C. But I can teach you how to regulate, but your body is still going to be in this crisis state. Your body is still going to feel what it feel. And then if we're teaching you just from the mind and your body is still in this crisis state, you're still in a crisis. Then you're going to say the therapy didn't work, but it ain't that the
Or that's
therapy.
when the disassociation comes in,
Right.
not rooted in your body. And that's when we talk about
Right.
approaches, it's like, how can you go in and start up here?
Mm-hmm.
You're not here. And I think that's the
Exactly.
whole concept of why there are different approaches now to trauma. We'll go more into that when we talk about the body, but how everything is connected. So it goes basically,
Right.
you cannot address one sector without addressing all the sectors.
Mm-mm.
And I think that's where that whole
Exactly.
foundation of holistic treatment comes in, because
Exactly.
mentally, like, even though you can repress things,
Mm-hmm.
and even though you don't have memory, your body, the energy of the trauma, you still carry.
Mm-hmm.
And often that's what we call shadow side, because in your mind, this didn't happen. I blocked it out. It never happened. But the energy
Mm-hmm.
of it is still there. And then sometimes how you receive, how you're treated, sometimes is based upon the energy that we have not released or healed, that sometimes draw in a certain frequency. Meaning not
Right.
saying that you is your fault that if you've been sexually assaulted and it's happened more than one time, it's more or less understanding the dynamics of boundaries, of
Mm-hmm.
your right to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But often you may not, because in your body might have been threatened with harm. So you don't
Right.
feel like you have a right. You don't really physically feel you have a right. So, and understanding that in the development, you have to
Mm-hmm.
go back to a person to really feel they have a right to be present.
Exactly.
Often that so you try to minimize yourself or hide yourself, whether it's through weight gain, subconscious,
Mm-hmm.
or to maybe push people away from you. But or the eating,
Yeah.
the oral fixation, sometimes to just eat to satisfy
Mm-hmm.
feeling, which goes back when we talk about dealing with the mental health and the feelings. In order to heal, you have to feel. So those feelings of shame and guilt that often occur with sexual trauma is what often keeps people from dealing with the trauma.
Right.
And some of that can go into, often we're not really even educated about sexual health and the most beneficial way to understand it often. So
Mm-mm.
it's so much taboo
Mm-hmm.
that
In our, especially in our community,
in our community when it comes
sex
to
itself is a taboo.
I've had
Mm-hmm.
so many conversations with young ladies or women this week about when we discussed coming of that age when you had your cycle. What was that approach like? What were the women like? And somebody said, "Oh, my mom just looked and went another way and didn't say anything."
Mm-hmm.
So it's if there's shame or if you're not feeling the acceptance of something that is going on within your body, and we carry the shame, and then we want to repress,
Mm-hmm.
and that's
Right.
depression. That's where the anxiety
Mm-hmm.
come into it.
And
So
it's all up here, the mind. What we make up about the world, people, places, things, and the world outside of us once that trauma has happened.
yes, definitely. And
Mm-hmm.
then it seems like that is the world. That's how trauma messes with your head,
Mm-hmm.
is because you still feel that energy, even though it's not
Exactly.
occurring.
Exactly. Exactly. As if it's happening right now.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So acknowledging that and being real of how much trauma hadn't been addressed, when even with mental health that goes into other addictions, substance abuse addiction,
Yeah.
to deal with anxiety, to deal with the pain, whether it's drinking, smoking, gambling, whatever it may be, your
Mm-hmm.
vice, to take your attention away from what you feel bad about.
Mm-hmm.
And it can
Mm-hmm.
develop into an addictive habits to
Pardon.
help
Mm-hmm.
release it that hadn't been addressed. And then all people see now is the addiction,
And not what caused it.
not what caused it at
Mm-hmm.
the beginning. So then the feelings of self worth left, feeling worth, all of that
Right.
goes into, which makes people just rather not deal with it.
Deal with it. Let alone it being a taboo to talk about it.
There's light on the other side.
There is. We don't want to be stuck there because that's not the intention to be stuck there. Trauma, so as trauma happens in silence, so the shame happens in silence, but healing happens in community. And if we stay stuck in the shame cycle, we won't move forward to the healing part, which is the mind, the body, and the spirit, which is the whole body self and not just one part.
Mhm.
So we want to do what we call the integrative, the holistic healing. Just as we talked about the mind, and we can't talk about the mind without talking about the body, because again, the head is cut. Trauma, to me, in my opinion, trauma causes what I call cutting off the head. you are dissociated. You're not in your body. Then you go on to try to have relationships, and you're not having relationships in your authentic self. Your trauma part is coming in, having these relationships, whether they're romantic relationships, your family ships, your co-workerships, your friendships, or whoever, even parentships. You're coming in in your trauma part because we're cut off from the head and the body.
Mhm.
So which would be a good segue to move into the body. That's the body is very important
Mhm.
piece when it comes to healing trauma.
Very, very, and
Mm-hmm.
when you were saying going back into feelings, you have to feel safe in order, and then having safetiness allows you to have trust.
Right.
So it goes back in those layers. If you're not feeling safe in your body, then you're not going to feel safe with anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And so as we go into relationships, which are based upon trust, and so this is where having that sense of self and awareness to communicate, even going to the body, but even right there with the relationships, is because that trauma self shows up in the relationship. So often your real self is not present.
Mm-hmm.
It's your trauma self.
Mm-hmm.
And so not honoring that trauma self, that's why a lot of people feel like who they marry or who they're dating is not really them when they see another side, or you're feeling the victim and not
Mm-hmm.
feeling understood, but
Right.
not realizing you're not showing your true self to be understood
Right.
and that
Right.
to be heard.
Right.
So it's like we have to take off the, if you want to get that true healing and have more healthier relationships, you have to have a healthy relationship with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You really
Mm-hmm.
have to be in your body, honor your body, feel all the feel ungood, not feely good things, but
Mm-hmm.
to get to that part. And so that's what I'm saying, going to that trust. And I just have to say this as an example as we see clients, and this conversation is not just for women.
Women.
This is
Right.
for men too that I've dealt with.
Exactly.
I've noticed in relationships often that that breakdown in communication and even intimacy may come from that past trauma. And so I've heard
Mm-hmm.
men say, she doesn't trust me. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
understand. She always don't trust me because some of these women or children have been violated by parents,
Mm-hmm.
cousins, brothers.
Mm-hmm. People
So
they did trust
that
at
which
one
they're
point.
safe. So if
Mm-hmm.
they don't feel safe in that environment, they may love you, but they may not totally deep down trust. And why would they if their initial trust has been broken by that level? But
Exactly.
if they have not been able to communicate that with their partner, then that partner is going to feel rejected in some aspects with things, or not wanted because it may not be a sexual interest, or that libido may not
Mm-hmm.
be there because of feelings and not trust.
Mm-hmm.
So I always tell that
Mm-hmm.
that's a whole nother talk when we go into sexual health. But if you're not in your body and you're in your mind, what they did, what happened before, there's no way you can have a happy orgasm or healthy orgasm. You may enjoy intimacy and it feels good, but you're not reaching that healing point. And that's often the trauma
Right.
healing because it keeps you from having orgasms. And that's where the
Exactly.
healing comes in. So I guess that's a good side way of moving into the body,
Mm-hmm.
because trauma impacts the body on so many different ways. And
Yes.
that's the Hayes area as a sex therapist, but just it the physical body and how we work holistically. Many of the women that I work with that deal with autoimmune
Mm-hmm.
disorders have had some past trauma early on in life
Right.
that
Right.
hasn't been addressed. And the nervous system, now the everything is just in haywire because it's not able to process it health,
Mm-hmm.
health
Or stabilize or
that's fine.
feel at ease and regulate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So within that high response, that sexual health is a big piece.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, women and men, because we are dealing with men that are having impotency issues and libido
Mm-hmm.
issues, and some of it is more mental than it is physical to health wise and what you're eating,
Right.
but also is mental. So I'll let you
Right.
go into that avenue with the sexual, how it impacts relationships and intimacy, um,
Yes.
sexual trauma.
So trauma does affect the body. Um both men and women. And as Asha was stating earlier, it does affect how we're able to have orgasms. Sexual dysfunction or sexual disorders or sexual arousal challenges are often related to sexual trauma. Um, so what happens is that again, the body is in this crisis state, even if the trauma has been decades. Okay, if the trauma has not been addressed, it still resides in the body. That's why that book, Trauma, The Body Keeps the Score, is a great book. Long book, but it's a great book because the body does keep the score. It our body holds it. Just and we'll talk more about that spiritually, but our body does hold the trauma as imprints in our body. So then when we're trying to engage in these romantic relationships that may lead to sexual relationships, we are in our forefront of our mind, we're thinking, oh, we're good, we're cool, we're sensual, we're sexual, oh, we macho, huncho, we got it going on. But the body's like, hold up, wait a minute. I remembered this. And what I remember, it wasn't consensual. I didn't want it. It was with somebody I trust, and now I don't trust anybody. So your body goes into this state of flight, fight, freeze, or fawn. So we're there and we're in the act, but we may be disconnected. And we're disconnected because, again, remember we talked about the mind. The trauma has cut us off. We're in our head and we're processing, going through, or trying to keep from processing and going through while the body is in this fight, flight, freeze, or fawn state. And so, therefore, when you're not there physically, you're not accessing those pleasure points, or you're not allowing those pleasure points to be accessed in order to have orgasms, or to actually say that you had a pleasurable moment. And this goes for men and women, because men, you could be having sex and you're doing what you're doing, and it's just an act. It's just something that you're doing because this is what I know I'm supposed to do. I'm not really feeling pleasure. It's just something that I'm taught to do.
Mm-hmm.
So we're disconnected from the body. When you go through healing, when you go through trauma work or you work with a therapist, the work is being able to one, feel safe within your own body. And when you're feeling safe within your own body, you're then able to understand that you now have power and control over who's in your space. So now this is where the mind starts to connect, because now I feel empowered to know that I'm going to bring safe people into my space. So now that I feel safe, I can trust that I'm going to bring safe people to my space. If these people that I chose are my safe people and we're engaging in sexual activity, then I'm not going to float off in that moment. I'm going to be in my body and I'm going to experience what I need to experience that is pleasurable, and which is going to lead me to orgasms. In the orgasms, knowing that each time you have an orgasm, you are healing, which is, we're going to get there to the spiritual part. You're accessing healing when you're able to have an orgasm. Um, for one reason being that you're now re-imprinting what sex is, that is consensual, that it is pleasurable, that you have power, control, and autonomy over your body. So now you're in this space, and sex before healing is going to be completely different. But we have to get to that healing part first, which is you being safe in your body. And that's where somatic work comes in, whether it's yoga, there's trauma informed yoga that you can do. There's sensory yoga that you can do, sensual yoga that you can do so that you can get more familiar with your body. There is Pilates. There's so many different things that you can do to get into your body. The mindfulness, the breathing, even tantra exercises can also help you get into your body to help you feel safe and understand that you have power, control, and autonomy over your body.
And with the body, how we talk about how our body holds trauma, in response to trauma, we never really realize how it's being impacted, even for women, whether it's our cycles, our menstrual cycle,
Mm-hmm.
even for men. If men have received had trauma early in their early stages of development as a child, it could actually impact the actual growth of the penis.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a couple of inches that have not actually able to release from the scrotum because of
Right.
trauma.
Right.
So it can impact in the reproductive areas that trauma how it responds in the
Mm-hmm.
body. For ladies, and with the female reproductive areas, that's a muscle.
Yep.
So often, many of us already hold trauma in the obvious muscles of our bodies and not
Mm-hmm.
realize it. It's like somebody touch your shoulders and say, "Oh, you're tight," and you're like, "Oh, I didn't even realize."
Mm-hmm.
Well, the vagina is a muscle. Upon entry, that's a
Mm-hmm.
muscle. So it holds muscle memory. So if some of
Exactly.
your experiences were traumatic, that it holds in that muscle. So for women that may have painful intercourse and they want to have sex, they don't understand, but
Mm-hmm.
it's when that time happens, it's like the muscles tighten up and then it becomes painful
Right.
because it's holding trauma in that area. It means up, tight. This is not safe. You're not entering.
Exactly.
Your mind is saying, no, I want this. But your body is like, no, no entry.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so it can also cause other health issues in that area because literally tight, no blood, no circulation is going to cause this trauma area. So
Right.
that's why that somatic work and other energy work can help release trap trauma in those areas by allowing things to
Right.
flow and release, not realizing that's where we're holding most of our
Mm-hmm.
trauma if they've had if you've had any type of sexual trauma.
Mm-hmm. I want to add to that too. You made a good point with in our bodies, especially our hip area. So, working with clients that talked about how they're not able to move their hips. Their hips are like it to them feels stuck. And that could be a trauma response because whatever your trauma was, your body makes up that when you're about to engage in what looked like your trauma, I'm going to protect myself and I'm going to lock so that that person can't get in. And
Mm.
so your hips will feel locked. And when you're trying to engage in sex, you can't move or get into certain positions. You can't do certain things. And this is where pelvic floor exercise can come in. Again, this is where doing yoga and stretching of the hips can come in, but it won't work until you get into your body and you tell your body that you are safe. The person that I am choosing to be with is a safe person. And again, so this is where now the body and the mind are working together. So when we're sending that information from the body to the mind that I am safe and the person that I'm choosing is safe, and you're now doing the work physically, you should start seeing differences in how your hip can now relax. And Asha did mention earlier about, our vagina being a muscle, and it is imprint. Even for men, you don't have a vagina. However, you do hold spaces on your penis that has imprints. And for women, so for women, we call it the womb space, but for men, it's the dentier, which is right below your belly button. That area also holds information when there has been sexual trauma. So it will be doing body work with that. Men, of course, go out there, do your yoga, go running. It's do movement. Anytime you're moving those trauma imprints out the body and allowing for new memory to be stored, but it can't happen without memory or movement.
Yeah, definitely.
Mhm.
So that goes into the spiritual aspect.
Oh, yes. Yes,
So
yes,
that's
yes.
the part that we always forget. And then the spiritual aspect of things is very important because sexual trauma can break your spiritual confidence
Hmm.
or your faith.
Mm-hmm.
How did this happen to me? Why did this happen to me? What is spiritual if this is occurring to me? And how did others let this happen to me? So it's those things that you can go to the dark, you can go to the light within this aspect of trauma. But I always say that sometimes that's where the healing comes from,
Mm-hmm.
out the dark. But we have to acknowledge it in order to heal from it. But really, even being serious when we think about even with sexual trauma and the the genetic aspect of trauma in families, talking
Right.
even within that, and
Right.
understanding energetic, those who've been in the church, the succubus, the incubus
Mm-hmm.
energy, that I can say as an energy worker and working with clients that have had trauma, after a while they begin to realize it's the energy of the predator that they're able to tap into now.
Yeah.
It's the energetic imprint of a predator. But if you're not safe in your body or trust your body, you're not able now to tune into energy of other people. But
Mm-hmm.
that's where that spiritual awareness, which starts with self, is still going back to the bottom line of knowing that self, to be
Right.
more spiritually protected, to understand that one of the things I would say the things that they don't teach us about or keep away from us are the things that we really need to do more research. And it is so much that's been taught of the miseducation of sex and the importance of sexual energy,
Mm-hmm.
which keeps it in a lower frequency for lower frequency entities to attach to it. So it becomes more of a thing of control, manipulation, or
Mm-hmm.
commerce in order. So the love and intimacy of it is more of an action to receive or get.
Right.
And with that, lower frequency energies can attach to it,
Mm-hmm.
to people that carry
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that energy. So it's
Mm-hmm.
something we do have to aware. I just know in the work that I've done, we don't just do work, just mental health work. We also go into it with our shamanic practices and
Mm-hmm.
energy clearing. Sometimes we are releasing energies and entities
Yes.
of people off of people that they have been abused, and that energy of that abuser is still in their aura,
Right.
in their
Right.
psyche, energetic
Mm-hmm.
field. So that's why it's important to be cleared and also to be aware of your divine connection, to trust what you hear now, not be
Mm-hmm.
mad at spirit, lose faith. You knew not, but the
Mm-hmm.
experience could have caused you to reconnect with yourself, which is going to cause you to reconnect with
Mm-hmm.
spirit on a higher
Mm-hmm.
level now.
Exactly.
And I think that
Exactly.
whole concept of safe again, to be feel safe, to feel connected to a higher cause and being connection,
Mm-hmm.
as above as below.
It's below. Right.
And
Right.
for it.
Right. Right. I wanted to add to that too. When you talked about how, when we go through sexual trauma, and I also want to give a disclaimer, what we're talking about too isn't something that also happens when we're in childhood. We have could have gone through, had a good childhood, and then boom, adulthood or
Mhm,
teenager, and have been assaulted. These things can still happen,
mhm,
where you still get a narrative, you still get a belief system. It still affects the mind, the body, and the spirit. And so, in working with the spirit, like Asha said, your spirit is now down. So, in your spirit being now down, like she also mentioned, you also have the energies of either your perpetrator. And so, in the work that we do, like she mentioned before, like the shamanic practices that we do, the Reiki practices that we do, it is about clearing. And so I want to talk about the clearing work, because some of you may be like, well, what is that?
mhm,
So, clearing is energetic clearing. So, being able to go to an energy practitioner that is well versed in clearing, as well versed in working with trauma. Because when we're working with spirit, there is this, there's entities, there's energies, and you want someone who's able to handle that type of work. So, in going to get an energy clearing, you're allowing your practitioner to clear energy that has been in your aura from your trauma. Now, this doesn't mean that you after the session you're going to be like all gung ho, things are great, because there still have to be the work. What happens is it allows you to be a little lighter so that you can go through the work, because doing trauma work isn't simple. It's not a one size fit all type of work. It is not a 1 week, 1 month, or even a 1 year work. It can be a work that can be drawn out depending on the depth of the trauma. So with the clearing work, it does allow you to step into the work without this heaviness. Trauma caused like this darkness, this heaviness. And so just imagine trying to go into this work and you got this 50-pound weighted blanket on you, and you're coming to sit before me or before Asha thinking that you're going to leave in 6 months and be a little bit lighter. No, we got, as just therapists, we got to do the work together collaboratively to help you with that 50-pound weighted blanket to take it off so you can stand up and do the work. However, for those who choose, if you want to do the spiritual work, that 50-pound blanket can now feel like a 20-pound blanket. And then as you're going through the therapy, you'll feel lighter and lighter and lighter, and you'll be able to be more in your body, and then you'll be more open and more intuitive with the mind piece. So we both, I speak for myself, we've done clearing work with working with individuals that have had trauma. And even as a practitioner and also a survivor of both assault and molestation, I recommend, for those who are open and ready to do the clearing work, because it does help, like I said earlier, it does help with the trauma piece. Even down to the metaphysical part. Asha mentioned earlier about how, spiritually, trauma does create certain things in our bodies that affect like our reproductive organs. Endometriosis is one. PCOS is one. Fibroids is one. Cyst is one. ED is one. What's the other one? Prostate issues is one. So being able to go through this clearing work and have someone who's well versed in it to be able to help do this clearing work, you're able to work with the physical piece and the metaphysical piece. And then go into doing your therapy piece. So I strongly recommend for those who are willing to allow us practitioners to do the work, to do the spiritual work. The spiritual work also would include doing the inner child work and the shadow work.
Yes.
Yes. I'm a proponent of inner child work before you do shadow work, because I think of shadow work like 100-pound blanket. And I wouldn't want you to do 100-pound blanket work without knowing where that 100 pounds come from. Inner child is how you're able to understand where that work is. And so when it comes to sexual trauma or sexual assaults, that inner child work will help you understand what this 100 pound is and how to work through it in the present moment while you're still constantly doing the mind work, the body work, and the spiritual work. So again,
At
that's why.
the end of the day, like you said, I like how you gave an example that the inner child work is going to be key, because only you know how to heal your inner child. And that's what I say, you can go to therapy for years and trying to address some of the issues, and then feel like, oh, I'm not feeling better even going to therapy. But it goes back to starting at the bottom of that inner child work, that initial imprints of it, and how does that little boy, little girl feel? Because if they still don't feel safe, that's why we have grown women and grown men having adult temper tantrums, or not knowing how to communicate what they feel. And it's literally like a temper tantrum as a grown person because of not having that connection.
Yes. Or be in situations where they feel re-traumatized because they didn't do the work with their inner child to give themselves a voice to understand boundaries, to understand consent, or to know that I can say no. I don't have to be in this space. I have power, control, and autonomy over my body and my space.
Mm-hmm.
So inner child work is very important.
Mm-hmm. It is. It
Hmm
is. And then that makes it easier to do the shadow work.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
the shadow, if you don't deal with the inner child, then you're growing up with another version of yourself to survive. And that's
hmm
the shadow side that's going to present itself to every. You're presenting this side, like this is what I want people to see me as.
Right.
But the shadow is like, that ain't who you really are. That ain't how we really think. What are
Right.
you doing?
Right. Because I often ask, like, how do you even know what's in your shadow if your inner child haven't told you what wounds have been created?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So shadow work is very
Which is
important.
deep. So not even understanding that, because if we don't deal with it in the now and you create life
Hmm
in the womb with the same energy, then that's how sometimes we can continue to pass it down. So that's not to
Yes.
feel guilty, like, oh my God, I didn't think about this, and now I pass this energy down to my child. It is still work that can be done in the now. That
Mm-hmm.
goes into when we talk about even doing spiritual healing and
Mm-hmm.
ancestral healing. Is a lot of the work on the shamanic side is helping to heal 7 generations forward and 7 generations back.
Right.
So some of the work that we do now in the present can help release energetic cords that are in the DNA, so
Right.
that we don't continue to pass this down and down into the next.
Yes. Because it happens. It really happens. Grandma may have been sexually assaulted, and then she becomes a anxious parent, trying to
So
prevent it
very
from
protective,
happening. Oh
right?
yeah, prevent it
For
from
me,
her child. Yes. So then all of a sudden we're behaving that way, and then boom, we have our own trauma. So it doubles or triples, and then we pass it down to our children. And
mhm,
so that's what we call that generational trauma.
mhm,
Um, but doing the spirit work and doing the body work could help us be in the present, do the work, heal 7 generations back, and heal 7 generations forward, because now we're changing the trajectory of that trauma that now it ends with us. So healing is possible. um I always say, you know, do we become 100%? No, but you could come 90%. That other 10% we don't want to actually get rid of, because we still need a little bit of anxiety to keep us from going into dark places or to make decisions, or we need a little bit of the hyper vigilance or the hyper focus, or just to remind us, hey,
mhm,
remember this happened. This person doesn't look quite safe. Oh, you know what? That's right. They don't look quite safe,
mhm.
to help us with our intuition. But
They
he'll,
don't feel
however,
safe. They don't feel safe either, right?
right, they don't feel like, yeah, checking the energy, the
Mhm,
spirit part.
mhm,
And so healing is there. Healing can happen. What happens, shame happens and thrives in secrecy. Healing happens in community. The first step would be being able to verbalize or vocalize, this happened and I need support. And
mhm,
once you vocalize or verbalize that, you have many, many professionals out here,
mhm.
Asha, myself included, that are well versed or experts in this field that could support you in this space.
Mhm. And I think that's the most important thing, that anybody, as they scroll through this live, those it does reach, those it don't. But if you stop and listen and hear something, um, it's a sign,
Mhm.
that it's time for healing. And I think
Mhm.
this is not a topic that people even want to be a part of, because of still dealing with the shame or
Mhm.
guilt, or that's low energy. I don't want to deal with that.
Mhm.
But I feel those who need to hear will hear.
Right.
And in that place, there is support for you. And so um, we are here to assist you on that journey through different modalities that you feel safe and comfortable with. And I think that's the most important thing. If you're not ready to do mental work, that's not the only solution. Get in a
Mhm.
yoga class, get connected to
Mhm.
your body first, and the more grounded you
Mhm.
are, then you're ready to do the mental.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
couple work. You're having issues in a relationship. That's cool, and everybody say we need couple counseling. No, get the individual first.
Mhm.
You can't be a couple grounded. So
Right.
that way you can clear up what's yours, what's theirs before you even go into it. So it's just speaking about it. I just want to encourage all women, women of color, all that it is time for us to speak up. It is time to get help. Let's
Mhm.
release the shame. Let's release the guilt that is attached to sexual trauma so
Yeah.
that we can release it from our auras and take our power back. Um, and move forward in a healthy way and reclaim our wound, which is the beginning of all. So
Mhm.
I always say the things that they try to destroy, it makes me wonder, we can go in deeper, like it's too many of us having hysterectomies. They're taking
Yeah.
our power away.
Yeah.
Some of the pain and the stuff that's coming due to the hysterectomy, it's just because you have a hysterectomy, you still have those emotions and thoughts that are still there.
Mhm.
Still hadn't dealt with it, it can go to another part of your body. And so we still need to get to the root of the healing. That's a sacred place for both parties. And the more we suppress it, it keeps everything in the lower chakra energies, which we want to bring the energy up to the heart chakra. That's what tantra
Right.
is about bringing the sexual energy up to the heart and letting it magnify from there, which means you got to trust, you got to feel power within yourself in order to love and feel trusted and love and speak your boundaries.
Right.
It all goes up through your energy center, start
Mhm.
feeling safe. So we
That's why
just
they
hope
call it bottom up.
bottom up. That's it.
Bottom up.
There's so many signs and symptoms that people deal with and don't feel like it is. So
Mm.
again, reach out to us. We do have. Let's see. Let me get what my producing skills here to put up what we have. So in case. So we talked about different healing modalities and helping you to heal from trauma. One thing that we are doing on the 26th is a workshop on helping to heal, utilizing energy work, body work, embodiment, somatic work, and the three of us, two of us being licensed clinician, and another mental health professional who dealt with sexual assault herself as a sexual assault advocate, will just share some information about working the sexual trauma through your body and using energy and movement in order to heal. So hopefully that you can make that. That is a donation based class. So you give what you can. And if you know someone that could benefit from it, please pass it on to them. Also, Tahiyya has a class coming up um, in May.
Mhm.
She's here. Um, about learning how to do energy work to heal sexual trauma. Have you want to tell a little bit about that and the benefit
Yes.
how this can assist those?
So this training, it's good. It's energy healing, Reiki, and in this training, we're going to be discussing how to use Reiki specifically for those clients or yourself who has experienced some form of sexual trauma, and this is for sexual trauma recovery. So recovery means that we're moving through into our healing. So this class will be going over how to use Reiki, the metaphysical aspect of how trauma affects the body, how you're able to use energy healing to help facilitate calmness, stability, um, emotional stability, and body work for your clients and for yourself. So I'm excited about this class. So I do ask that you are familiar with Reiki because we won't go through the formal training of Reiki. That's Asha's lane. When you come to me, it's understanding the principles of Reiki already and then how to utilize that to work with yourself and to work with clients. So that'll be on Saturday, May 10th from 9 to 3. We will take a break so that you can debrief, and we will have integration. And of course, I always have to bring my cacao because that's my favorite plant medicine. So we will have cacao to as we are integrating, or you do that morning, not decided yet, for heart opening. Because when you're doing this work, it is also very important that you're in a place of healing and open heart so
Mhm,
that you can mimic what your client is needing.
mhm.
So I'm excited about that class. Saturday, May 10th. You could go to Eventbrite to register. And yeah, join us.
Tahir, will you tell them your website? So in case
Sure.
to reach you.
So you can go to tahiyyamartin.com. It's how my name is spelled, tahiyyamartin.com, no space, .com. And there you will see my healing offerings. And I'm also updating the site for erotic offerings. The erotic offerings will be what you will want to get into once you've done the healing work. And then for my therapy practice, it is She Heals Journey, heals with the S, journey.org. And there you can contact me if you're looking for therapy. And then also, if you jump on Amazon, you can get the 45-day journal for reclaiming your sexuality. And it's a healing journal, and it's specifically created for those who are ready to move into sexual trauma recovery. Anybody can use it, but like I said, it's specifically for those who are ready to move into sexual trauma recovery. And it's just a 45-day journal with prompts, and each prompt, each week, you're moving into a part of your healing journey process. So you can also find that on Amazon as well.
Great, great, great. So good stuff coming up. So we hope to see you guys in something. If not, you know where to find us. My website. What is my look, I need to show mine. I have this up there. You can find me at www.ashaktywellness.com. And then also for any events that we offer, coming to the Zenchi Lounge. Um,
Yes.
it is a safe place to come and learn. We have different classes from somatic yoga classes, restorative yoga, tantra workshops, kink workshops, all aspects of the spectrum that you would like to
Mhm.
learn that can be healing for you at www.thezenchi, Zenchi Lounge. So we hope that we have provided you guys with some informative knowledge to take with you to help on your healing journey or pass on to someone that you feel may need this. So at the end of the day, let's release the shame.
Mhm.
You'll be surprised there's more that have dealt with sexual assault than you think.
Yes, because
On my end,
statistically,
I have more friends now. I realize the more I
mhm,
talk about it, they say, "Oh yes, this happened," and it's been with family members, doctors, coaches at school, different people of
mhm,
power um, that occurred, but nobody speaks about it.
yeah,
So,
because statistically, our community, the Black community, report less of
mhm,
any sexual assault or molestations,
mhm,
and then men report even less. Your percentage are even less.
mhm,
So, like she said, if you know someone who needs this information, please give it to them. I think coming out on April 26th will be a great start to like a segue into your healing.
mhm.
Share the information. If you suspect someone, share the information. You don't have to be all up in their business, but share the information with as many people as you know, men and women and men, uh, because you are deserving of pleasure and you're deserving of healing. This doesn't have to be your story.
That's it. You can rewrite the story.
Yes, you can.
Rewrite the story. So. All right. Well, we thank you guys. Love and light, blessings. You know where to find us. And we'll see you soon. Bye
Okay.
bye.
Bye.